When people talk about Islam and Hinduism, they usually focus on how different they are. Islam is seen as strictly monotheistic, while Hinduism appears to have multiple gods. Their religious texts, practices, and rituals may seem completely unrelated at first glance. However, if we look deeper, we find that these two religions share many surprising similarities in their beliefs, values, and way of life. Both Islam and Hinduism emphasize devotion to God, ethical living, and spiritual discipline. While their approaches may differ, their core teachings often overlap. Here are 5 lesser-known similarities between these two ancient faiths. 1. Belief in one supreme God. A common misconception about Hinduism is that it promotes the worship of multiple gods. However, Hinduism also speaks of one ultimate divine power, called Brahman, from which all other deities emerge. This idea is similar to Tawheed in Islam, which refers to the belief in the oneness of God, Allah. Islam clearly states in the Quran, Surah Al-Ikhlas 112-1, He is Allah, the one and only. Similarly, Hindu scriptures also affirm monotheism. The Upanishads declare, Ekam meaning God is one, without a second, Chandogya Upanishad 6-2:1. While Hinduism represents God through different forms like Vishnu, Shiva, and Devi, many Hindu scholars explain that these are just different ways of connecting with the same supreme being. Similarly, in Islam, Allah has 99 names, each describing a different aspect of his divine nature. 2. Daily prayer and devotion. Prayer is an essential part of both Islam and Hinduism. It is seen as a direct way to connect with God and requires discipline, focus, and sincerity. In Islam, Muslims perform 5 daily prayers, Salah, involving specific postures such as standing, bowing, and prostration. These movements are meant to bring humility and mindfulness. In Hinduism, devotees perform daily puja, worship, which includes chanting mantras, bowing, and making offerings to God. Another common tradition is ritual purification before prayer. In Islam, Muslims perform wudu, ablution, to cleanse themselves before prayer. In Hinduism, devotees take a bath before temple worship or wash their hands and feet before performing rituals. These practices reflect the idea that spiritual connection requires both inner and outer purity. 3. Fasting as a spiritual discipline. Fasting is considered one of the most powerful forms of self-discipline in both Islam and Hinduism. It is seen as a way to purify the body, control desires, and grow spiritually. In Islam, fasting is mandatory during Ramadan. Muslims abstain from food, drink, and other physical desires from sunrise to sunset, using the time to focus on prayer and self-reflection. In Hinduism, fasting is commonly observed on Ekadashi, Navratri, and Mahashivaratri, where devotees avoid certain foods or fast completely to purify their minds and bodies. Both religions emphasize that fasting is not just about avoiding food, it's about self-control, gratitude, and devotion to God. It is meant to teach patience, discipline, and inner peace. 4. Life after death and the consequences of actions. Islam and Hinduism both teach that our actions in this life determine what happens to us after death. Though their descriptions of the afterlife are different, the core idea is the same: we are accountable for what we do. In Islam, the concept of akhirah, afterlife, states that every person will be judged on the Day of Judgment. Those who have done good will enter Jannah, paradise, while those who have committed evil will face punishment in Jahannam, hell. In Hinduism, the concept of karma states that every action has consequences. Good actions bring positive karma, leading to a better rebirth or even spiritual liberation, moksha, while bad actions result in suffering in the next life. Both religions emphasize that life does not end at death and that we should live with honesty, kindness, and righteousness because our deeds will impact our future. 5. Modesty, charity, and ethical living. Islam and Hinduism both promote modesty, humility, and ethical living. Both religions encourage their followers to dress modestly, speak truthfully, and live with honesty. In Islam, modesty, hijab for women and humility for men, is an important principle. The Quran advises both men and women to dress and behave respectfully. Similarly, in Hinduism, traditional clothing for both genders reflects simplicity and respect for cultural values. Another common value is charity and helping the less fortunate. 1. In Islam, zakat, charity, is a religious duty, where Muslims donate a portion of their wealth to the poor. 2. In Hinduism, dana, giving to those in need, is considered a sacred duty, which helps purify the soul and earn divine blessings. Both religions teach that true wealth is not in money but in kindness, humility, and generosity. Finding common ground. While Islam and Hinduism have differences in rituals and theology, their core values and principles are strikingly similar. Both emphasize 1. Belief in one ultimate divine power. 2. Daily prayer as a way to connect with God. 3. Fasting as a path to spiritual discipline. 4. Moral responsibility for one's actions. 5. Charity, modesty, and ethical living. Understanding these similarities can help people see beyond religious labels and recognize the shared spiritual wisdom between these faiths. Instead of focusing on differences, we can build mutual respect and unity by acknowledging these common values. At the heart of both Islam and Hinduism is a simple message: live with honesty, kindness, devotion, and humility, because, in the end, that's what truly matters.